when should you lower calories when on a cutting phase? Probably the most important question you'll ever cross, because lower them too much and you could run the risk of, and heaven forbid, losing muscle tissue, which was obviously not what we wanted to do. Or you lower them too much that you actually just can't stick to that anyway. You fall off, you fumble the football, and you just can't continue with the cutting phase. So you fucked it anyway. But on the flip side, don't pull them enough, and then off the back of that, it takes longer. And then with it taking longer, you probably lose a bit of motivation, and maybe you fall off that way. So we want to get it in the sweet spot to do so. Now, you may think, why am I the motherfucker that is qualified to speak about this? Just for a quick insight, I make these decisions literally on a weekly basis when I'm doing my weekly check-ins with my guys, assessing the data that we put in through that week, what result that gave us, and then what decision we need to make in order to continue to make that progress and get results like this. For you, those of you that don't know me, first time viewer of the channel, welcome, great to have you on. My name is Tom Sergey and I run the Gorilla Platoon, which is a online physique transformation program. If you want to get involved, there'll be a link in the description. That'll be the only plug I do in this video. Let's get into the juice and get you the right decision. So, we're going to go through this fat loss decision tree. Now, don't worry if you can't see it. I'm going to go through it anyway and explain it. But you can revert back to this when you're going through your progress. Now, the first thing I will say to you is just make sure you're tracking all of your data. So you've weighed in for 7 days. You've taken photos week on week. You've tracked your steps, cardio, and nutrition. So you've got all that data, and your sleep as well. You've got all that data to go off, and then you can make a proper decision. Because you're not going to know if you're making progress if you're not tracking that anyway. So I'm going to assume that you were smart enough to track all the data, and I'm not being condescending if you didn't, but please start tracking the data, because otherwise you're never going to know if you're making progress, obviously, because you've got nothing tangible to go off. So track those points. And let's say you tracked those points for a week, and for 7 days you've not seen any progress. This here says 7 to 14, but in fat loss, you could drop 1% of your total scale weight per week, and you should want to. Fat loss comes quite quick, whereas muscle building is a little bit of a longer process in terms of seeing changes to physique from visuals and from the scale weight. So let's say, for example, you have ran all of your data for a week and you've not seen any change. The first question you have to ask yourself is, were you 100% adherent? You ate every meal on the plan, you conducted every step that was allocated to you, you conducted every minute of cardio, you trained, and you also slept within the bracket of hours that you normally sleep to. Because if the answer is no, then we have to address why. Because there's no point changing a plan that could work, but we don't know if it did work because we weren't 100% adherent to it. So you then have to ask yourself, well, why weren't we adherent to it, and fix that issue? And ultimately, most of the time, it just comes down to our own level of planning. Life will always try and get you. Like, it will. There'll always be a reason why you couldn't have eaten that given meal and you had to eat out. That's life. Life is a dynamic, beautiful thing, and we shouldn't begrudge that. But what we should do is take it into our own ownership and make sure that we are the ones in control. So I would ask you, just the night before, go into your iPhone notes, script out what you need to do tomorrow, make sure your meals are prepped for tomorrow, make sure you've got your meals with you. So if you have a busy day, you still eat the meals, you still get all the training, the steps, cardio, everything in. So you actively chose what you're going to do tomorrow by planning it the night before, and then you executed on that, even with the struggles that came into it. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt. You were adherent for 7 days, but there was no progress. So we've got that ticked off. Now what we want to look at is, where do we want to make a change from? You've got a couple of options. Now, I'm not always the advocate of just pulling food straight away. It depends on what phase of the dieting space you're in. If it is, you are my client and it's now, we've done week 1, no change, then we would go for food straight away, because we can bring that down, because we know that the input and output could have been lower relative to your body composition. So that's when I'd pull from food. I'd also pull them from food right towards the back end of the diet, because I know it's going to give me a greater response. And in the back end of the diet, it will serve you to do less than it will to do more. And it's easier to take away food than it is to do more of something, steps or cardio. So that is when I'd also pull from it. But in the middle, I would actually keep food as high as you can. Now, you may think, why? The reason being, food will drive your performance in the gym. Driving your performance in the gym will be the biggest, the longest lever you can pull in terms of building and retaining tissue. Even more so than just eating the protein target. Don't miss your protein target, but if it comes to protein target and training stimulus, I'm in the training stimulus camp every week versus just getting my protein target in. So actually sometimes, you may even say that carbs towards the back end of a diet phase may actually serve you more than protein. Obviously, it's a hard toss-off, but you can see where I'm going with this. So I would not look to decrease food if I have got the space to increase output, because I will keep my training performance in the gym and I will just decide to move more. Now, that will serve people that like to keep food higher. These are people that have a greater appetite. Personally, I can get very, very lean off 2,800 calories, which might seem quite high, but I have like a really high appetite. Some people may not. If you don't have a massive appetite, then actually pulling from food is great. I've got a client just speaking today, and he was like, honestly, don't have more time for cardio. That's another thing to consider. I would rather you just took from food. I could even ditch this meal, no problem. So then we can pull from there. So you have to ask yourself, what serves you more? Do you have time, and what is your appetite like? If you have time and you have a high appetite, then you increase through cardio. For the longest amount of time, there will come a point, let's not beat around the bush, you will have to pull the food lower towards the very back end of the diet. But that is something you keep in your top left, and you only deploy it at the last safe moment. If you are someone with a low appetite and low time, then you're going to look to decrease from food and keep activity at a relatively safe space. Now, there are some other factors to consider. So let's say here, you fat loss stalled, adherent for 7 days, visually look leaner and decreased in the scale and or caliper size. If the answer is no, move down to other factors involved that could be blurring fat loss. So do you have any digestion issues? If yes, that's going to be something that we need to fix first before we then see a certain result. You could have, hopefully none of you are using PEDs. I mean, it's not something I run with clients, but it's something where I got this information from. They teach this, so it's not something I can really shed light on, to tell you the truth. I don't know anything about PEDs, to tell you the truth, because honestly, I will never take them. Why? Because I'm a pussy and I just don't like needles. I don't like putting stuff in my body that I really don't have to. Because I'm a pussy. And I'll admit that. I don't care. Then we need to think, if it's a female, if you're on cycle, you're going to hold more weight. You're going to retain more water. That's just the way it works. Mother Nature. Increase, decrease. So did we have poor sleep? Poor sleep will be a serious driving factor in whether you make progress. I've said this in previous videos. If you don't sleep so well, you're swimming upstream to make progress, because if you don't sleep well, it's easier to accumulate body fat and lose muscle. We want to do the polar opposite. So you want to be sleeping like a baby. You want to treat sleep like you treat your workouts. If stress is higher, you'll hold a bit more water. You've got water retention from training. Ever done a really hard toasting leg day, and the next day you're a little bit heavier on the scale? It's just where we've held in more water retention through inflammation. Changing fluids, changing daily routine. So this could be again, going to bed later, stacking all of your steps towards the back end of the day can also do that. And obviously, the actual change in the time you do the check-in. Your check-in will differ whether you checked in first thing in the morning, fasted, dry, no water, versus 6 o'clock in the evening. You had a couple of meals, plenty of steps, and plenty of water. So these are things to consider. If it was down to these factors, then don't change the plan, because again, it wasn't a true reading. I won't tell people to check in if they've just flown the night before, because you're going to hold water. Depending on the length of the flight, but majority of the times you're going to hold water. And honestly, even if they fucked up on a weekend, I'll probably tell them to move the check-in to the Tuesday. Not that I'm giving them the green light to just mess up every weekend, but it's not going to give us a true reading, a true reflection of the overall input or output. But again, that can come down to lack of adherence. Now, let's say that it wasn't due to any of those factors. We then need to read, is training performance improving or at least maintaining? If the answer is no, your training is not improving, but you're also not dropping weight, then we're in a bit of a bad space, because training should be increasing. So then you have to question, why is that happening? And actually, would it serve us to put in a diet break before rinse and repeating that out? This can happen when you've dieted someone for a while, their metabolism starts to get fucked, and then they're just worn out from dieting. It would serve you then to put a 4-week diet break in, square away that metabolism, and then go again. But let's say training performance is going up, which we're happy with. So then you have to ask yourself, is the calorie intake high enough and the expenditure low enough to allow a further deficit? It depends what stage of the diet you're in, but if you've burned, then this is why you don't want to use all your tools at once. You don't want to just go big deficit to start with. Depends on your body fat. I've spoken about that at length as well, but you want to leave enough room for progression as you go through the diet phase. The body will respond to a certain input and output, and then it won't, and you'll need to make a change. If you've made that change really big and really early, you've got nowhere to go with it until it stops responding, and you end up in this space here having to cut it short early. But you want to have left room for progression in cardio and progression in the decrease of calories as well. If yes, consider decreasing calories when food is high. And then the second one you've got is consider increasing energy expenditure. So again, going into those one of two levers to pull. So to summarize this whole thing really, good adherence was applied because you tracked all the data. You then need to decide what phase of the diet you're at. If it's right at the start, right at the end, I'd be looking to pull from food. If it's in the middle and you've got the time to do so, I'd increase through cardio. If you don't have the time, then obviously you're going to have to decrease through the food. But the point of the matter is, don't play your cards too early. Look at the data and then make those decisions. Don't look at yourself emotionally in the mirror and make a snap decision to change it. And this is why having a coach actually serves you so well, because he will make those decisions, not from an emotional state. He'll just look at the data and then make the decisions, whereas you will make it based on emotion. How you see yourself in the mirror on a one given time, a one given day, because of one comment someone made. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope it was clear. If you didn't and you think it could be better, then mention in the comment below. If you did find it of value and you think you would get more value from me in the future, then subscribe to the channel so you see my videos on your homepage. We're here every day. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.